Right. Good morning from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for people to jump on. Right. Good morning from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for people to jump on. Right. Good morning from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Good morning. All right, so let's see how this goes. This is a bit of an experiment this morning, guys, because I did set up a class in Facebook, but I can't maximize my screen there. I don't know how to. And so that means that when I record it, I'm just recording a tiny little part of the screen. And as you guys have noticed, the past couple of weeks, the video quality is really very poor when I blow that up for you guys. So today I'm recording myself, and I should have a beautiful recording, full size, with good video. So that's the plan. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it works. All right, we've got a couple of people who are joined. Good. All right, so the replay will be up after. These are supposed to be short and sweet, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm pretty excited for today. Today is all about breathing, so it's good for our scoliosis. How to use breath in a way that's going to beneficially impact our scoliosis and improve our scoliosis, improve our posture, and improve our body's ability to work on our scoliosis. So let me jump into that. I'm just gonna go check one more thing here. Can you let me know if you can see me all right and if you can hear me okay? Also, drop a line where you're from, just for fun. Drop a little hello, say where you're watching from. That's always fun. And remember that throughout this live, you're welcome to write your questions. And if you join in with the Zoom link that I posted, you can actually have your camera here, although I won't post the recording of your camera, but you can have your camera if you want me to look at you, and you can ask questions live like that as well. All right, so here we go. We're off to the races. So breathing, so it's good for your scoliosis. In the Scoliosis Relief Program, I have 3 aspects of breathing that are beneficial for scoliosis. The first one is abdominal breathing. The second one is myotatic reflex release breathing, which has to do with stretching and flexibility. And the third one, which is common and which people, not common, but rather is well known in all scoliosis relief conservative programs, is breathing into your concavity. Okay, so the breathing to open up your rib cage and derotate your rib cage. And this was made famous and popularized by the Schroth method by Katarina Schroth, I think the original wonderful lady who designed this program before her daughter has now taken it over, and they've got a wonderful thing going in Germany and around the world. Okay, so let me just take a look at my notes here. We're going to talk about all 3 of these, and we're going to get right into it. So the first question I had is, why the breath? What can it affect? So we're breathing all the time, right? And as we inhale, we expand. As we bring in air, we expand. We either expand in the rib cage a little bit, which is normal, or we expand in the abdominal area, which is a little less common. It usually takes some conscious attention to bring the breath lower down into the abdominal area. So one of the things that's happening, when people say abdominal breath, they think, well, how can I breathe into my abdomen? So let me explain the physiology of abdominal breathing for you first, okay? So what's happening is you have a beautiful sheet of muscle which separates the upper and lower parts of your abdomen. Okay, good morning, welcome. So I'll be admitting people, as you guys have to ask me to admit, and then I admit you in. So I'll be getting those requests as we go, and I'll just be bopping people in, letting you in. So we're talking about the abdominal breath and what's happening physiologically to explain how it is that people say, bring your breath down to the abdomen. How can we do that? So it's not actually that your breath is going down to the abdomen. It's that the diaphragm, that beautiful sheet of muscle which separates the upper and lower halves of your torso, the diaphragm pushes down when you fill your lungs completely with air, and you also consciously direct it down there a bit. So let's do this. Let's try this as an example, okay? Let's put one hand on the top of your chest here and one hand on your belly, and then breathe in and see what rises. Maybe both, okay? So if you are very nervous, or if you're rushing, right, if you're actually out of breath, then you're going to find that you will default to chest breathing, okay? So this is a more shallow breath. It's also when you really need to breathe, take a big breath, naturally you're going to open your thorax and your chest. There's nothing wrong with this. However, if you are always only breathing into your chest and you're taking small, shallow breaths, you're not bringing air all the way down into your lungs, and so you're not getting as much of the good effect of the breathing that you could be. So that's regarding chest breathing. If you notice that you're always just in the breath, or you're very tense, you'll see that your breath is short and shallow and in the chest. So that is a message for you that you would do well to think about slowing down a bit, taking some time to calm down a bit, and practicing some slower breathing, and as we're talking about now, abdominal breathing. So you've got one hand on the top, one hand on the bottom. When you're breathing in, what's rising, what's falling, okay? So if you have a habit, maybe you have a habit of doing abdominal breathing, maybe you do it naturally, but let's try this together now. Breathe in really deep, all the way down to the bottom of your lungs, fill your chest. Okay, so your thorax will expand a bit. And now I want you to try to expand your abdomen just below your solar plexus here. Expand this area as you breathe in. Okay, so when you consciously ask yourself to do it, you bring your breath down, and the diaphragm will push lower, and that will allow that expansion in the abdominal area. And I'll show you in a minute, we're going to do a standing exercise, and we're going to try to do some abdominal breathing while we're doing that. And you'll see that I can really make my stomach stick out pretty far, which in Tai Chi is considered to be a good sign. It means that you've got some abdominal breathing going pretty well. And it's pretty funny because in doing Tai Chi forms in China, they'll see my teacher's teacher was famous for really expanding his tummy when he was doing that form, just because he had a really effective abdominal breath. So why the abdominal breath? Okay, so there's a couple good reasons for it. The first is that a whole lot of research shows that when you're breathing abdominally, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So what that is, we can think about sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We have a lot of complicated words for these things. It sounds very impressive and scientific. Let's try to make it very simple. The sympathetic nervous system is what you're using consciously. So when you wake up, when I go reach for my phone, when I look at the camera, when I'm moving around here, so that's conscious activity, okay? Remember, your nervous system is the beautiful electrical and chemical system for controlling your body, both voluntarily, so sympathetic, so what I want to do, okay, things I pick up, and involuntarily, which means organ function, the healing functions of your body, the rest and rejuvenation functions. Those are not controlled consciously, and they're controlled by what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, or not usually anyway. If you get to be, I've heard stories of folks who got to be really, really good meditators and were able to do more of that consciously, but typically not. So that's fine. We're not concerned so much with that. But what we are concerned with is we do want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system as much as we can. So we call that the rest, rejuvenate, and recover nervous system. Now, let's get a couple things clear. When you're sleeping, by the way, your parasympathetic nervous system lights right up. Okay, so all night, this is one of the reasons why we need to have a good enough sleep. All night long, your body is resting, rejuvenating, and recovering, right? And you don't do that consciously. And the more your sympathetic nervous system is active, the less your parasympathetic nervous system can be active. Okay, so what was I going to say about that? So what we want to do is we want to consciously activate that parasympathetic nervous system while we're awake. Okay, now this isn't going to be the same as when you're resting. You're not going to get the same level of resting and rejuvenation and recovering, but it is going to activate it. It's going to light it up, okay? And so you're going to activate that part. And research shows that it actually pulls stress hormones out of the blood. Your body will start to remove stress hormones out of your blood when you activate the sympathetic nervous system with abdominal breathing. So you spend some time doing some abdominal breathing. So that's one reason why we want to do it. The second reason, specifically for scoliosis, is that we're going to combine it. Oh, wow. Hi, folks. Got a bunch of you, I just noticed a whole bunch of you were waiting in the waiting room. So welcome and come on in here. Let me go take a look at this and see what I can see. Okay, I've got a couple of cameras here. Hi, Dr. Agarwal. Okay, we got a bunch more folks. So you do not have to show your cameras. You can if you want. Like I said, if you want me to look at some of your technique later. If you have a question, you can also type in the chat, and you can also type in the chat in our group. So this is fun. So I've got you guys on Zoom. So I'm looking now at my Zoom camera, but I'm also streaming live in the group. So I'm going to be sort of flipping back and forth between these two. And I think they're off by about a second. So hopefully that isn't too confusing for you guys. I had to turn down my volume on my screen so that I don't confuse myself. Okay, so we're talking about the 3 types of breathing we're using in the scoliosis relief program. Okay, abdominal breathing, derotation breathing or concavity breathing, and myotatic release or myotatic reflex release breathing. Big mouthful of a name, right? So abdominal breathing, we were practicing and checking and seeing what we can do as we inhale and what goes up. So when we're inhaling, we know that we're causing an expansion. Okay, we're inhaling, the ribs are expanding, or the abdomen's expanding, or both. So either of these are fine, but we do want to consciously do more abdominal breathing for the reasons I mentioned before, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to actually help us be healthier. Just removing stress hormones from the blood helps reduce the risk of a number of illnesses, as you are possibly aware of. Number of illnesses associated with high stress hormones. Obviously, in our society, we have a lot of stress. We live high-speed, stressful lives. So that's desirable from that point of view. But very specifically for scoliosis, what I wanted to show you guys this morning, and why I said bring a cushion, is because I want to talk. Remember that our first meeting was all about sitting so it's good for your scoliosis. And what I did is I showed you how to sit in a chair, and I also showed you how to sit on the ground. And this is one of the things that I work on, flexibility for people so that they can sit cross-legged on the ground. And I want to demonstrate to you why right now. So your body, your nervous system is always listening to itself, meaning that it is aware of what's happening, right? If I bump my knee, I'm going to feel it. And if I put my hands on my knee after I bump it, it's going to feel a little better because my nervous system is communicating. So let me give you another example here, okay? So if I bring my hands like this, my left hand is aware of my right hand, right? They feel each other, and my right hand feels my left hand. And the signals, the nervous signals are going to go back through my arms, and they're actually going to give me an improved sense of my shoulder alignment and possibly my upper back alignment. Make sense theoretically? Tap if that makes sense. I know it's sort of complex, but does that theoretically or intuitively make some sense? Let's look at another example here. So I'm going to cross my legs. So we did go over how to cross your legs in a way that's comfortable, and we did go over in session 1 how to sit in a way that isn't going to just sort of cause kind of crushing forces, the way most of us sit all day long in our administrative jobs, as I did for quite a few years as well. The amount of sitting we do isn't good for our back, but there is a way to position your posture so it is good for your back. We're not going to get into that for today because we just want to look at breathing, but suffice it to say, here I am. I've set up my base of support. I'm cross-legged. I have improved my posture, and I don't need to use my abdominal strength to sit up right now. If my knees were very high like this, then I would be using my abdominal strength, and I'd be tensing my abs. You'd have to have your abs tensed. Some of you will be in this position when you try to sit in a cross-legged position. Your knees will be way up high, in which case you have to support them, and you also have to lift up your seat. And you also have to work on flexibility so that you can open up your hips and sit like this. So why this posture? When you put your feet like this, your feet are touching each other, you set up a kind of a triangular base of support, which sets up a beautiful structure of support for the upper body, okay? And then we're going to actually touch our hands together. There's a classic position like this. Some people will do this, or thumbs inside, up here. There's a number of different ways you can do it, but the limbs are all touching. In this cross-legged position, the limbs are all touching, and they're giving parasympathetic feedback, or rather, proprioceptive feedback. So again, another big word. It just means our own body's awareness of things around us in space, so how close we are to the wall or whatever. And it also means our own perception of where our body is in relation to the other parts of our body. So your sense of what your posture is doing can be improved. And that's what we want to do with this abdominal breathing. I know that's a mouthful, okay? So it's a lot of information. It's kind of complex. But just try to absorb it intuitively for now. These are supposed to be really short, sweet sessions that just give you some idea and open up space for you to have some questions or to talk to me a little bit more. Please feel free to write your questions in the group because it's good for people to see them and I'll answer them in the group. Of course, you're also free to contact me personally. So here we are, and I'm not going to talk about setting this up right now, but suffice it to say I have now set up a posture where my limbs are all getting feedback information from each other. And then I'm going to do the postural adjustments, which we discussed in the first day. I'm going to improve my posture. And by breathing abdominally here, I am activating my parasympathetic nervous system and I'm allowing my body to take stock of the positions it's in. And I'm going to allow my body to become informed of my scoliosis in a much improved way. So this is very, very subtle. Okay, so sitting in this posture is the most subtle aspect of the scoliosis relief program. It takes some time to set it up and become comfortable with it. And it also is a little bit counterintuitive because you're just sitting, but you're sitting in an improved posture. Okay, so I want to try that now. So those of you who are sitting, who want to sit cross-legged, go right ahead. For the rest of you, I'm going to go do it on the chair. I'm going to encourage you to do it on your chair if you're watching on a chair to make it easier for you. Okay, and I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute, and we're going to do parasympathetic breathing for 1 minute, and you are going to try to sit still and try to simply concentrate on your breath. So I'll go over it with you here. Let's set it up here. Okay, feet are under my knees. My hips are a bit higher than my knees. That allows the leverage for me not to have to use my abdomen when I'm sitting up. Okay, I'm going to sit up nice and tall, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. I can bring my shoulders up, back and down a little bit. And then I can tuck my chin in 1/2 inch or so, and that's going to elongate my cervical vertebrae. It's going to separate them a little bit, release some tension between them. And then, importantly, this whole posture from the waist is going to move forward maybe 1/2 inch. Maybe 1/2 inch, maybe a little more. Okay, we're not machines and you're not stuck. You're allowed to play with your posture and see how it feels. And that leaning forward allows the effort of holding up the back to be transferred to the musculature of the back, which gently pulls on the vertebrae, especially the scoliosis vertebrae, and helps to rehabilitate them and pull them into an improved position. It also strengthens exactly where we're weak. So let's do this for 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Try to take your posture and try to hold it still and bring your breath now. Watch my tummy. Bring your breath right down to your abdomen. So maybe you're just bringing it a little lower. Maybe it's more like your solar plexus. Maybe it's not going to expand your whole abdomen. That's fine. Solar plexus being just about the middle. That's fine. Okay, just relax here. So you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. This is going to have a calming effect. You're literally going to remove some stress hormones from your bloodstream. And you're going to introduce some happy hormones or some of the good chemicals that we want. And you're going to improve that's it. You're going to improve your body's ability to perceive where your scoliosis is. And that's going to be very, very valuable on your journey of beginning to make the postural corrections you need for your scoliosis. Make sense intuitively? Let me know if that makes sense, or if it doesn't make sense, and ask your question. Now, the next thing we're going to get into real quick is trying to do an abdominal breath while we're moving. So let's do a standing exercise while we're trying to do an abdominal breath. Now, this is quite a bit more tough because when you're moving, you are using a lot more energy, right? And you're doing a lot more with your body. So it's not as calm, it's not as subtle, it's not as easy. But let's have some fun here, okay? What we're going to try and do is I want you to bring your ears again, ears over your shoulders, shoulders over your hips. So that means you're going to be pretty much chest up, okay? So chin in a little bit. It's kind of like a military seeming posture. It's a little bit stiff maybe, seems a little bit kind of like a soldier standing upright, but bear with me. So when you do this, you have a nice ear, shoulder, hip. That's good. But that also means that you accentuate your normal curves. Okay, so the lumbar curve is going to be a little larger. Cervical curve is going to be a little larger. That's okay. We're going to work with that. Watch what we're going to do now. Remember from day 2, looking at standing postures, we're going to now bend our knees a little bit, and that actually lessens those normal curves. So once you bend your knees, look at my lumbar curve. Once you bend your knees, it flattens a bit. Now, we don't want to flatten it completely. We never want to have a completely ramrod straight spine. We have normal curves here, and they're good for the spine, but we are going to lessen them a little bit. And once again, we're going to tilt very slightly forward. Okay, so let's do this 3 times. Breathe in and straighten your knees. And breathe out, come down. So, and then tilt very slightly forward. Chin in a little bit, okay? So that same idea of elongation, you're producing elongation forces by bending your knees, okay? You can bring your hips under maybe an inch, okay? That does it even more, okay? So that's pulling down in the lumbar area from your sacrum. You're pulling down and then bringing in that chin and tilting very slightly forward. Now you're pulling up. So you've got elongation forces, which are really good for the back, and that's one of the main things we want to accomplish with scoliosis, right? Scoliosis is sideways, and it's crushing down with gravity. We want to gently elongate it as we help to rehabilitate the positions of the vertebrae as much as we can. So breathing in, one more time, and breathing out, knees slightly bent. Now put your hands in your abdomen and keep going. Breathe in and bring your breath down. Breathe out, bend those knees. Again, breathing in, bring your breath down. And you may notice that you have to make a much smaller movement. I'm facing sideways so you can see the angles of my posture here. You might find that your movement has to be smaller when you concentrate on an abdominal breath. Okay, let's keep going like this. Breathing in, you straighten your knees. Breathing out, you bend and you tilt slightly forward. Okay, so some of you told me that you felt muscular effort in the thoracic area, where we can hardly ever feel muscular effort unless we're doing very specific, specialized exercises or specific exercises for that area of musculature. We hardly ever feel the back in that area, right? Because it's surrounded by the ribs. So tilting slightly forward, you're accomplishing elongation, and you'll feel some things start to give a little bit of love in there, a little bit of effort, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of working in a place that's usually very stiff, okay? So if you have a lumbar curve only, then you'll feel this more in the lumbar area. So be very, very gentle and just listen to what your body is telling you and tell me afterwards. So now we're going to go into the hands. We're going to breathe in. I'm going to bring the arms up, and breathing out, we're going to bring them down. I'm going to keep it really simple, just this movement for today. So, and I want you again to have this basic example. Now, the weight of the arms, everyone's arms weigh a significant amount of weight. We don't think about it because it's just part of us, but this is an example of what's called body weight exercise. So breathing in, the arms come up. The weight of the arms produces forces which the back has to coordinate. And because we're adjusting our posture, the weight of the arms will actually start to work the 2 sides of your back. And you're going to start to feel a little bit more about your scoliosis. You're going to start to feel a little uncomfortable, perhaps, in one side or the other. Okay, that's okay. Be gentle. Of course, I don't want you to work through pain, but don't be surprised and don't be, always follow your intuition. But I will tell you that when you work on your scoliosis and when you start to really get into your back, there is some discomfort. Okay, it's unavoidable that there's going to be some discomfort. Okay, but we work with it, and we have a lot of techniques to help release and relax the back afterwards in the program. Okay, so breathing in, we're coming up, and breathing out, we're coming down. So that, now one more time with an abdominal breath, in and out. So it's a mouthful, okay? It's a lot of information. It's a lot of detail. It's kind of complex. I know it's going pretty fast. It's already 10:27, and I still want to show you 2 more types of breathing real quick. So I'm going to race through this because I promised this was going to be about 20 minutes, and I don't want to go much over half an hour. So the other kinds of breathing, we're just going to talk about them real quick. So concavity breathing, all right? So that is, very simply put, you're breathing into the back concave aspect of your scoliosis curve, and this applies to thoracic curves. Okay, so the typical S curve is convex to the right. So this is my right. This is my right side here. It's probably the opposite for you guys. Okay, but this is my right hand. And so it would be like this, and then left to the bottom. Okay, so when you talk about curves, they're always talking about which way the convexity goes. So convex is like this. But what's on the other side of, let me do it like this. What's on the other side of convex? Concave or concave. So you can think of a cave. Okay, that's an easy way to think about it. You've got a depression there, or a concavity, right? There's the cave part of your curve. So what you want to be doing with this kind of breathing, really briefly, is you're breathing into the back of the rib cage where you have a concavity. And the point of doing this, directing your breath here, as Katarina Schroth, I think it was Katarina Schroth, I may be getting her name wrong. I think it was her who discovered this when she made the Schroth, when she was developing this for herself, when she was a young girl in Germany. She, not so young, I think she was a teen when she started doing this. What she discovered is that the ribs, the levers of the ribs can be recruited to help improve your posture. So again, my friends, it's all about the fact that it's movable. Even though it's all stiff, it is still workable if you want to, if you are willing to get into it. So let's say she wanted, so where she wanted to breathe was here. Okay, so the concave aspect. So let's say her curve was going like this. Okay, I hope that's visible to you guys. She wanted to breathe into here. So she'd be inhaling and getting that back. I'm not sure if you were able to see anything there, but getting that back to expand outward and using the ribs, changing the position of the ribs. She discovered that when she breathed into the concave side, the other side responded by rotating forward. Okay, so that's what you want. So she discovered that she was able to derotate, which apparently isn't a word in the English language, but anyway, that sounds silly as I say it, but I looked it up a few months ago and I couldn't find it. But she found that she was able to, exactly as I just said, reverse the rotation effects of scoliosis. Now, something that has to be said here. Abdominal breathing, concavity breathing, are these magic pills? Are these things where, you know, I said before, when you do abdominal breathing, it takes stress hormones out of your blood and reduces your risk of illnesses? You know, or it's like you're sleeping, you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, so it's similar to when you're sleeping. I don't want you to get the idea that these are magic pills, okay? That, you know, you do a little bit of this and it's just, wow, like everything changes really fast. Actually, nothing changes fast with scoliosis, and you would not want it to change fast. I got someone else to admit here. Okay, you actually would not want anything to change very fast with scoliosis. If it were to change fast, it would be extremely painful, right? We know that when people have surgery, sometimes surgery is the best option for some people with very severe scoliosis and etc. So, but when people have surgery, the recovery period is very intense and very painful for a long time. Okay, so, and that's just because the spine has been forced into those positions, and then the musculature has to sort of catch up with it, okay? And it's not the best way to work on your musculature. And in fact, in many cases, once you've fused vertebrae, you're not allowing the musculature there anymore to do what it could do around the individual vertebrae. So anyway, that's another story. But the rehabilitation process is really difficult. So we would not want to just wrench our body into an improved position fast. So all of these things that I'm talking about today take time and have to be done gently and have to be discovered carefully. And it really helps if you have a coach, someone to work with you to help you along the way, answer your questions, encourage you, give you tips and tricks as you're going through it. So the last thing we're going to talk about today is that funny word of the myotatic reflex release breathing. So that's a mouthful again. So what is the myotatic reflex? It's a reflex whereby if your muscle goes out, like let's say your leg goes out to do something and it were to go too far. If it were to go too far, you would injure the joint and you might injure the muscle, but certainly you hyperextend the joint and maybe you'd injure the joint. So this reflex that we all have, it prevents your muscles from going out too far, and it kind of pulls them back a bit. So it's a reflex which is very beneficial. We want that reflex. But when we're actually working on flexibility, we would like that reflex to relax. So we're going to do our classic chair stretch real easy here. So if you're on your chair, come to the front of your chair so that your thighs are not blocked by it. Okay, we're moving real fast, lightning fast, because we got to finish up. Okay, the replay will be up for a week again, and you guys will be able to see this. I'm going to leave the other replay from last week up a little longer because we had a bunch of new people join over the weekend. So I'll leave it up a little longer this time. So here we are. Our bum is right on the edge of our seat, and we've got our feet flat on the floor. One foot is going to act as a pillar. I'll use the one that's away from you. The other foot is going to stretch out straight. Now you'll find that if you're not on the edge of your chair here, when you stretch your foot out, it's going to be blocked. Your thigh will be blocked. Okay, so you really need your thigh off the chair. Okay, heel down, toe up to the ceiling, and just tilt your back forward in the same way as we did before. Tilt from the waist, although I don't mind if you just fold forward here, doesn't matter so much. We're not trying to work on the back per se. We're just going to try and get some flexibility in the back of the leg here, specifically the hamstring. So you may feel it hamstring, knee, calf, all of that's good. That's what you want. That's normal. We're accomplishing some stretching here. So here you are. Now, how to do myotatic release, reflex, release, what a tongue twister, breathing. So you simply come here, you establish a stretch. Okay, so if you haven't done a lot of stretching, it's not like working out in the sense that you have to find a place that's mildly uncomfortable, but not too much. And then you want to stay there for a little bit. Okay, people sometimes come into a stretch for 3 seconds and then they leave it. Okay, it's good to spend some time in your stretch, at least 30 seconds. Okay, so here you are. And now breathe in through your nose with a nice big breath, and then breathe out through your mouth slowly. And just keep going in through your nose, out through your mouth. You don't have to close your eyes. You can if you want, but you don't have to. Okay? So this type of breathing, this slow breathing, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Once again, it's related, the slowness of the breathing is related to what happens when you do abdominal breathing, meaning it tells your nervous system that it can calm down a little bit, and it allows that reflex, which usually prevents the muscle from being stretched as much, it allows it to relax and release a little bit. So again, does that mean that now you can just fold forward as, fold in half? No, your flexibility takes time. And it doesn't matter if you can touch your toe or not, but it takes time to develop. But once you're in a stretch, you want to do that nice, beautiful, relaxed breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So my friends, those are the 3 types of breathing that I have included in the Scoliosis Relief program, specifically my 4-month program where we work together for some time. If you want more information, let me know. Obviously, I'd love to help you, but you have to be a good fit for the program. You have to ask your questions to make sure that I'm making enough sense for you. And I have to be sure that you want to work in this program and that you're someone who would feel good doing this and would like to do this, okay? It's a big deal to really take your scoliosis in hand and say, I'm going to work on it. That being said, I do offer 6 and 10 program classes where I give you a written program. We do an assessment. We always start with an assessment. And then we go through and I can give you a program that you can work with as well. But for really getting change, you could do it with a program, but it helps when you have someone who's working closely with you over a longer period of time. Okay, so, and at the end of 4 months, does that mean that you're quote unquote fixed? No, that's, first of all, scoliosis is sort of like working with scoliosis is kind of a lifelong journey, my friends, okay? It takes time and it's pretty much going to be our whole life. I don't have any evidence of thoracic scoliosis anymore. I had a very slight scoliosis anyway, but I still have rotation in my rib cage. I still feel, when it used to be a lot worse, they recommended sectioning my sternum and repositioning my rib cage because it was so far over when I was about 11. So, which I've spoken about in other videos and that kind of thing. On my website, I talk about that a bit. So, but my situation was most people's are quite a bit worse than mine was. But that being said, I still have to work on my back and I still feel the asymmetry when I work. And it still really is significant in a whole bunch of different ways. Okay, so it's something which you say, okay, I'm going to take this in hand and I'm going to start a healthy lifestyle and I'm going to start finding out what's going to help my back and I'm going to keep moving forward to counteract that scoliosis, to rehabilitate the spine, elongate, gently strengthen, and gently move towards straightening. Okay, so that's the goal. And I encourage you all, really, I encourage you all. It's great that you look at things like this, you think about things like this, and you be inspired, ask your questions, begin to work on your back, okay? what is it? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, as they say. All right, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, let me know. And otherwise, I'm going to shut her down. I'm going to try and edit this video because the first few minutes were me just setting things up. And so I'll try and shorten it a bit. Okay, I've gone over my time enough. All right, guys, wishing you a wonderful day. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Bye.